Hello and welcome to the Open Space and Recreation Committee meeting in Gloucester. It is May 11th, 2022, and my name is Heidi Wakeman. I'm the chairperson of this committee. Consistent with the governor's orders suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and banning gatherings of more than 25 people, this meeting will be conducted by remote participation to the greatest extent possible. The public may not physically attend this meeting, but every effort will be made to allow the public to view and listen to the meeting in real time. In the event that a live transmission proves unworkable for any reason, an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of the meeting will be made available on the city's website as soon as possible. And I'd like to just do a roll call. Dan Morris.
Present. Hello.
Dave Sargent.
Here.
Liam Anastasia Murphy.
Here.
Mark Poulin.
Present.
Also present is Adrian Lennon.
Here.
And members Richard Quaitman is not here, and Noel Mann is not here. Okay, so we are gathering here tonight to talk about survey findings and to look at our first copy of the first draft or the draft of our open space and recreation plan. And I'm looking forward to this meeting, hearing what we have collected from any feedback from the survey, which has been open since the previous meeting on April 25th or 26th. I think that's it. I think I'll save public comment until the end of our meeting, and we can dive right in unless there's other new business that Adrian wants to say beforehand.
No, I'm happy to jump right in. I'll tell you, I got the survey results from MAPC about 20 minutes ago. So I also have not had a chance to look at it. We're going to see it all at once together. The survey, of course, just closed, and they've been working a little bit with the trying to give us a graphic representation of the results. And also the survey questionnaire did have open-ended response areas. So trying to kind of collate that a little bit. But I do know that there were 89 respondents to the survey, which is great for having been open for, only a couple of weeks. And also having like such a limited scope in terms of the response request. And so I'm hoping after we walk through this, we'll have a really good sense of what to prioritize in the action items going forward. So I will have to make this very large, I think, for us to all be able to see it. And so let me know when it's readable. Good. Okay. So this was question 1 on the survey. Let us know what voting district you live in. This will help better understand how residents in different parts of Gloucester feel about our open spaces and recreational opportunities. If you need assistance identifying what district you live in, consult the ward map. So you can see we had a really good response rate from people in West Gloucester, and again at East Gloucester Elementary and the Plum Cove School. So I think that's really nice to see. I also just want to point out here that districts or wards 1, 3, 4, and 5 make up almost half, it looks like, or a little more than half of the sample population. So I think that's really nice. It means we have a good distribution of respondents across the city. And then we know, of course, District 2 is a place where we can focus on trying to do more outreach in the future, maybe. Okay, objective A. And then, of course, if you had a chance to look at this, we're looking through priorities and trying to decide what are the high priorities. So objective 1A calls for the focus of land conservation efforts in areas identified as containing valuable natural resources, including priority wildlife habitat, watershed lands that supply Gloucester's drinking water, areas with large contiguous blocks of undeveloped open space, and critical areas of environmental and climate resiliency concern to be a high priority 82% of the time. I like that it was the first question too. I think that makes it, sets the tone for the balancing of priorities. If you recall, when we went through this as a group, more than half of what came out was what we consider to be a high immediate priority. So I'll be excited to see if there's any nuance to that as we go through the public response. Do you recommend adding anything? And then there were some recommendations here. Text, leave the areas in a natural state. No tourism development of Dogtown or North Woods. Identify parcels that are protected but degraded. I'm gonna make it a little bigger. Create a timeline with action items and their deadlines. Learn how bad parking will be at the new vet school. Keep Dogtown locally regulated. Do not include 1II, which is the transfer of following parcels into permanent protection. Okay, I guess that is to not transfer. Buy the island from private ownership. Update city parks playgrounds. Just a clarification as to what the term pathway actually means. Is there specific action for the pathway development? Or is this a generalization with no specific action identified? Exempt Dogtown from this plan, leave it under the control of the city of Gloucester, permanent conservation land surrounding Dykes Pond, and don't take any more parks to build schools. Okay. So continue to refine and improve the open space inventory by identifying and reconciling the following parcels. And this is the inventory work. This is considered to be a medium priority by almost half. And adding anything to objective 1B, I recommend adding the following actions. Parcels of unknown ownership identity should be a top priority. Such information needs to be held by the city. What is meant by improve? Clarify public access to Coffins Beach. Learn how bad parking will be at the new vet school. City has no right to private lands. Low priority of 1B3, otherwise okay. That one is parcels in city ownership to place into conservation restrictions, merge parcels for survey purposes. That's a low priority. Okay. Stop developers from asking for and receiving variances on marginal parcels such as the March side of Atlantic Street where the ecosystem is fragile. Keep Dogtown under local control. Don't build schools on existing open green spaces. Okay. Monitor the open space and recreation land inventory and improve analysis tools to treat the database as a living record of the current status of available and conserved land in Gloucester. This was given a high and medium, looks pretty equal. And no new additional, except learn how bad parking will be at the new vet school. Specifically access to Dogtown via the Babson Reservoir at Poplar Street. How can we help provide safe pedestrian access to this land, which was gifted to the citizens of Gloucester by Roger Babson? Can we work with CATS or the city to make an access point to the reservoir and into Dogtown? This needs to be data collected from direct observation, which requires staff be hired and in the field. This is a budget item, and without this data, in my opinion, has little authority. It's just hollow data. Do not partner Dogtown with any outside interests. Do not split title on any parcels. Okay. Objective 1D, promote and support the acquisition and permanent protection via conservation restriction of the following parcel types. This is a high priority. And the text items are, yes, I recommend adding the following action, excuse me. Although 1DIV is mentioned, I don't know what that means. Hold on. DIV, lands for protection of areas from flooding, storm surge, and sea level rise. it was deemed out of the scope of this plan. At-risk coastline property must be identified and preventative measures mitigating storm surge and sea level rise must be put in place before. The council should consider initiatives to intensify housing and business development in the city center, planning towards accessible services within existing neighborhoods, while also disincentivizing housing sprawl into contiguous green space. Equipment and facility maintenance at current parks should be a higher priority than creating new parks. Learn how bad parking will be at the new vet school. Recognizing that the high water mark is advancing on our fragile coast, planning for the future with stricter regulations on our immediate coastline. Leave Dogtown out of the OSRC plan. Work with the public on making this information easy to access so that everyone is aware of the parcels deemed conservation. Don't steal any more parklands to build schools, and then we won't be lacking. Okay, objective 2A, increase operational and capital budgets for more personnel to focus on the city's open space system. Implement an annual reporting and reconciliation mechanism into the city's annual budget cycle to outline short-term and long-term maintenance needs. This objective is a high priority, 53%, and then it is split between the other two as a medium low. And do you recommend any additions? Professionally caring for natural spaces, not civilizing them for visitor development. Decrease the amount of grass used in places where trees and native plants can be used instead. Learn how bad parking will be at the new vet school. We already spend too much. Keep playgrounds safe with continued maintenance. Hire staff with a reasonable budget. Leave Dogtown a natural wilderness. Objective 2B, develop and implement land management plans for priority parcel clusters to guide protection and management of Gloucester's open space. This is given a 60% and 30, looks like. Any additional comments to objective 2B? Do not accept any grants that might make the city lose control. Learn how bad parking will be at the new vet school. See above, we already spend too much. Set the vision based on the collective wisdom of the residents of Gloucester. Spend time developing collaborative vision and build opportunities for collective ownership of these actions. This is a slow process, and do not chase grant money with timelines and expectations which are coming from the grant administration. The grant opportunities need to fit the community's vision. If not, do not apply. Define current uses and access is critical. Protecting our resources should be regulated. Make Dogtown exempt from your plan. All public spaces need to have a bathroom or else they are completely unusable to many people with children or disabilities. Do the above with the goal of reasonable public access. Objective 2C, promote responsible and careful use of open space by expanding awareness of stewardship needs through public outreach and education. This is 50, roughly high priority. And additional comments include targeted youth, create Gloucester lore, personalize the value of their future in this moment. For example, the Emerald Forest, then versus now, and what they can do to help save what's left of other wetlands. Rules need to be better enforced in both wilderness and playground type parks, especially in regard to littering and graffiti. Do not promote already overused, overvisited natural space. Shut up about it. Have the properties checked annually to make sure that they are being maintained. Leave it alone. Learn how bad parking will be at the new vet school. Increase trail markers in the Thompson Reservation. The woods do not need to be managed. Leave nature to nature. Make sure areas are available for use with off-leash and on-leash dogs. And I think make the information available and easy to access for residents and visitors so everyone will respect our open spaces. Develop 2D, objective 2D, develop partnerships with local organizations and institutions to support the city's management needs. High priority is 50% and then 30-20 split roughly to medium low. Comments include youth stewardship with personal investment. It's not enough to have cleanup days. Promotions, events must be connected to give concrete understanding. Include mountain bikers and outreach. The mountain biking community does a lot to maintain the trail system throughout the island's interior and mainland parts of Gloucester. Do not partner with outside agencies. Leave it alone. Learn how bad parking will be at the new vet school. This usually means more money. We as the city are unable to care for our entire inventory. We need to use our partnerships and build new ones to keep our city great. These actions require leadership with passion. Suggest finding informal leaders within the community of open space users, young and old, who embody and engender the respect of the community. We need to build from the ground up with recognition of those who use and love these spaces. Partnerships with outside agencies should reinforce guidelines and regulations. Do not partner our open spaces with any outside interests such as trustees, greenbelt, etc. Objective 3A, establish a Parks and Recreation Division within the Department of Community Development to support the organization and development of associated programming. We got 50% on that one. Feel good about that. I think that's great. And 30 and 20. Looks like that's a common spread here. So I think a Parks and Recreation Division is greatly needed. Learn how bad parking will be at the new vet school. Who will do the hiring? Suggest forming a community-based search committee of these natural learners to work with city government to do the hiring. This should be headed by a landscape professional. Do not have this division be part of the DPW. Should be an independent department, not under Mike Hale's umbrella. All right, objective 3B, conduct a 10-year Parks and Recreation capital improvement plan for all Gloucester athletic fields, courts, and playgrounds to determine facilities, maintenance, and programming needs. This is a capital improvement plan, also 50, and we got a little bit more juice out of the low priority people to bring this up to a 40% here or so. So learn how bad parking will be at the new vet school. No, 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 we have no more money. Team sports are extremely exclusive towards people of various ages and abilities. They must not be prioritized over other uses of space, such as walking. Determine what ball fields, tennis courts, playgrounds are underutilized and turn them into either open space or, better yet, bike park, skate park, pump track. Stage Fort Park Playground needs updated equipment desperately. The amount of broken equipment is embarrassing to the city, especially as a tourist location. Well, since Mado's Field was stolen, we will now be short 2 coach pitch diamonds that were in use and a football practice field for Gloucester youth fishermen. So I assume it will be figured out how to get those back. Objective 3C, develop beach maintenance and management plans to assess capital improvement needs and routine maintenance protocols to enhance and protect all Gloucester beaches. This one, we broke 61%. That one, I think, wins a little bit of extra energy on the high priority field. We even got up over 35 here, so people care on that one. Add an initiative to expand the guarantee of public access to the shoreline and beaches throughout Gloucester. Learn how bad parking will be at the new vet school. Again, no money. Add swings on the beach. Winger Chic and to a lesser extent, Good Harbor generate income that should be reinvested in the beaches. Bathrooms need to be available at all public spaces in order to serve much of the population. Think about having Thatcher Road during busy hours at the beach be closed, traffic from Rockport to go up Witham Street. Make a row of residents and a row of non-residents parking. That's additional parking at the beach, I guess. Restore Cressy's Beach by removing the seawall. Add an independent beach committee. Restore the flow of the Good Harbor Beach Creek Bridge by restoring the bridge spans for natural flow, not dammed like it is now. Objective 3D, evaluate and improve existing Gloucester public landings to serve and promote boating, recreational, aquatics, and fishing. This one landed only less than 50%, 45 and 42 in equal, and the medium high. Investigate landings restoration for current hard to access landings. Learn how bad parking will be at the new vet school. We should not spend any money until my taxes go down. No item but comment as a kayaker and stand-up paddleboarder access to public spaces feels a bit unsafe, especially when kids are along. Not restricted, but lack of infrastructure feels uninviting. Replacing the dock at the Magnolia Pier. And then something like add Magnolia Pier. D3. Prioritize investment at the following public landings. Oh, okay. I guess maybe the float system there because the pier was just rebuilt, right? Okay. Objective 3E, manage programming and supervision of recreation lands through the city website using new and existing service portals while prioritizing Gloucester residents' access. medium, and high priority. Oh, that must be, we'll have to clean that up. Okay. Comments? Don't impose user fees for usage that doesn't require significant expenditure. The surest way to kill community participation and support is to impose user fees where there had been none. Learn how bad parking will be at the new vet school. Are you crazy? More user fees? It would be really nice to have public use kayaks and such available to residents. Promote question, objective 4A, promote cycling, walking, and other forms of self-propelled travel throughout the city by improving multimodal connections and wayfinding to provide safe travel. We got 48%, high priority there. We need a better bicycle connection from downtown to Gloucester Crossing, also across 128 to the Blackburn Industrial Park and access to the woods over there. Involve the mountain biking community in this process. Wheeled vehicles are steadily destroying unsafe pathways, turning them into muddy mires when stripped of vegetation. Investigate 20 miles an hour citywide speed limit, makes everywhere safer for bikes and pedestrians, reduces the need for dedicated bike lanes. Have designated places for bikes, not the narrow streets. Look at a cross Cape bike and walking trail as there are no sidewalks in many places. This would not make homeowners happy as it would cut into the right of way they now consider their own property. Learn how bad parking will be at the new vet school. Widen streets where possible, overhead pedestrian crossings at the Rotary, more lights at busy intersection to ease bottlenecking would all assist in the ease of adding bike lanes. More bike lanes for safer commuting, pump track for kids, young adults, and even older folks into practicing riding skills. No bike lanes, roads are bad enough. I want to point out here that question 4A garnered the most subject matter relevant feedback that I think I've read so far. So I appreciate people's engagement with the subject. I think that's great. Objective 4B, improve parking by identifying and enumerating suitable parking at entrances to popular open space and recreation areas. This one is pretty close to an equal spread of medium high. Ooh, this one did the same thing, 4B. Okay, we'll have to check in on that.
Yeah, so Adrian, on those, do you know if the Qualtrics just posted them with the largest response on top, or
oh yeah,
what's the source of the typo here?
You must be right about that, actually. Yeah, you're probably right.
Okay.
Good thinking.
Well, we want to be sure. I was just hoping for our conversation we could understand that.
Yeah, no, I think you're right, and that makes sense. It does, right? I mean, again, I'm looking at this for the first time too. Good thinking. That means 2 objectives have been made a medium priority. First, so that's improving parking. And do we recommend any actions to the objective 4B? Parking should feature a specified on-site information provided on the online maps, previous action item. Restrict and monitor non-resident parking. Learn how bad parking will be at the new vet school. I would protect Gloucester residents' access. Managing out-of-town use to public spaces through reservations would be excitement beneficial to the public. Okay, limited parking, road infrastructure is one of Gloucester's biggest issues. Objective 4C, improve ADA accessibility at all Gloucester open space and recreation areas to the extent feasible. This objective is a high priority for 46% of the respondents. And additional comments, learn how bad parking will be at the new vet school. ADA regulations should be site specific, noting what is baby stroller accessible. Okay. Objective 4D, identify green linkages in the city center and school zones. Objective is a high priority for 49% of the respondents. And the comments are improve safety for bikers on Route 127, which is the only throughway connecting most of the city. Memorial Foot Cycle Bridge linking Washington Street at Grant Circle. 65 Rogers Street should be commercial space for fishermen. Learn how bad parking will be at the new vet school. Sounds like more money again. Have information about improvements, trails, etc., easily accessible to communities. These actions are looking for help or looking to help. Okay. Objective 5A, advocate for and increase operational and capital budgets for personnel to focus on the city's climate change vulnerability concerns. Implement an annual reporting and reconciliation mechanism into the city's annual budget cycle to outline short-term and long-term opportunities to become more resilient as a municipality. And that's a high priority objective for 53% of the respondents. And comments are learn how bad parking will be at the new vet school. No money for climate change. The climate changes all the time. This does not seem like it belongs in open space and recreation. Objective 5B, advocate for the development and implementation of emergency management communications plans for city departments to use during natural disaster events. And this is a high priority for 52% of respondents. Learn how bad parking will be at the new vet school and already in place. Advocate for the development and implementation of a forestry management plan to minimize the risk of forest fires in city forests. It's a medium priority for 48% of respondents. And the forests now have so much dead wood, they are way overdue for fires. Access roads are not enough and may lead to more risk of fire since it will expand accessibility to cars. There needs to be an environmental plan for reducing the risk of forest fire, removal of dead wood, and other measures. Learn how bad parking will be at the new vet school. Staff needed, guessing needed, as well as volunteers, suggest establishing a core of community members who will be trained to assist with forest maintenance and trails. Objective 5D, advocate for the development and implementation of the recommendations set forth in the city's updated municipal harbor plan to redevelop a sustainable Gloucester Harbor. That's a high priority for 50% of respondents. We'll need to define what sustainable means in an industrial harbor, add the words, and provide public access and rights of way. Neighborhood groups that intercept garbage from flowing into drains during storms and into the sea, more fines for littering. Learn how bad parking will be at the new vet school. You should explain what you mean by sustainable harbor, sea life, boating traffic, question. Okay, objective 5E, advocate for the investment in resilient design to protect the wastewater treatment facility from the effects of flooding, storm surge, and sea level rise. Objective is a high priority for 68% of respondents. This is a high priority for the city, but a low priority relative to open space planning. Something to stop plastics and now masks to flow into stormwater drains. Learn how bad parking will be at the new vet school. Again, this does not seem the right place for this issue. Is federally mandated. Good Harbor Creek has record high bacteria and needs to be addressed, not just tested, and a warning to people. Advocate for the development and implementation of a wildlife and vegetation management plan for watershed lands and water department facilities. This is a, see, it didn't do that time. It's a medium priority for 43% of the people. Okay, comments. Learn how bad parking will be at the new vet school. Nothing with the term fund. Take our open spaces off the table, leave them alone. Objective 5G, advocate for an update to the existing surface water protection plan to increase water storage capacity in all existing city reservoirs. Objective is a high priority for 49% of respondents. And would expanding storage capacity in the existing watersheds mean seeding forested land to reservoir? I'd like to have that explained before supporting it. Investigate other potential public reservoir sites. Learn how bad parking will be at the new vet school. Leave Dogtown alone. Okay. Objective 5H, advocate for an update to the existing watershed management plan to include an expansion of the watershed protection overlay district. This is equal, high, and medium priority at around 40%. Learn how about parking will be at the new vet school, put all of Dogtown under the protection of the watershed laws and conservation while staying under local control. Objective 5, I think this is I. Right? Yep. Objective 5I, advocate for an update to the existing floodplain ordinance to identify areas of current and projected flood risk according to the FEMA geospatial database reports. High priority for 52% of respondents. This needs to be paired with a policy of incentivizing resettlement in established developed areas towards neighborhoods with accessible services rather than allowing encroachment and development in currently forested uplands. Learn how bad parking will be at the new vet school, strengthen the conservation committee and add professional input and add current professional input. Look at the rear of 34 Bass Ave. Okay. Objective 5J, advocate for an update in the existing wetlands ordinance to increase protection for wetlands, natural resource areas, and buffer zones. And that is a high priority for 49% of respondents. With comments, need to understand more about what on-site stormwater management would entail for single-family homes before I'm willing to support it. Leave Dogtown alone. Learn how bad parking will be at the new vet school. Why have buffer zones if the conservation committee is unwilling to just say no to encroachment by developers? Conservation committee needs to focus more on protecting wetlands, vernal pools, and their surrounding areas, less development approval near these very vulnerable areas. And do you recommend adding any actions that are missing from the 7-year action plan? Please leave our open spaces as natural a state as possible. I do not want more walkways, signage, parking, etc. Leave our natural resources alone. Learn how bad parking will be at the new vet school. We already pay one of the highest combined tax rates in the country. Inflation is running rampant and gas and oil prices are through the roof. We should be lowering taxes, not raising them. Limit overuse of public land that will destroy and degrade the natural land from overuse. Maintain local control and also work with partners. I'm not familiar enough to render an opinion on what may be missing. 1, a kid stewardship of the land program. 2, review the negative impact of the purple trash bags on the environment from routine spills. If trash is easy to be collected, then there will be less littering. And 3, outlaw nips. I second that. I'm not going to lie. When I spend a lot of time in the woods and what I see in the woods are empty nip containers, Mylar balloons, and that's about it. And cigarette butts. I see a lot of that. So anyway, it'd be pretty easy to get rid of, just saying. So that's that group. How do we feel about all those responses? You want to have a little bit of a discussion on what stood out to you or anything in particular? No, everybody's off.
Taking it all in.
Yeah. Go ahead, Dan.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
if you don't. I'm still processing this. This is a lot of information that has come at us just now. I wonder if this, and perhaps Adrienne can speak to this sort of thing from her experience in other committees. There seems to be a fair bit of poor understanding of what the open space and recreation plan is about, under whose auspices it is, and what purposes it serves. Some of the responses, there's the vets parking thing, that's not what I'm talking about. There are others that were that sort of, to me, seem expressive of impertinence in one sense, but more so, it seems to be ignorance of what this plan is about. This idea that this plan asserts some kind of control over an area, or that this plan is, adopted, or when it is adopted, that everything goes forward, and the city does it. It is only, it's a list of priorities, it's a map, and it's it's something that the council can point to that says we had a deliberative process that came up with these ideas, and now we have to take them into another deliberative process, pair it with an appropriation process, and mix it in with all the other cities' priorities, and and make decisions about the best use of the coffers and of the spaces themselves. And so my concern is that there's an ignorance about sort of how this sits in the realm of city governance. And I was wondering if you have any other experiences that say this is a citywide problem and we need to address it in that way, or if this is unique to the Open Space Committee.
Oh, no, I'll tell you what, this is a global American citizenship problem. It is a daily problem. It is an hourly problem in my line of work. It is a regular problem that I also try to address and manage in my work as a city councilor in my hometown. It is not unique to Gloucester, and it's not unique to open space planning. It's also not unique to conservation and understanding the scope and enforcement capacity, for example, of the Wetlands Protection Act and the Gloucester Wetlands Ordinance, and many other policy and regulatory oversight documents that are out there. It's very common. And so, you can only, it's a part of the experience of public service, is acknowledging that you are not necessarily going to be able to access every person that you're working with and have them approach you with a mind that is open to understanding what you're doing. And that's it. And you can't change other people. You can't change their position. You have to just kind of cut, this work, the Open Space and Recreation Plan, is deeply rooted in a very long-standing 30-year-old policy instruction manual that was written under the, Governor Deval Patrick's administration, by the Division of Conservation Services. It is not, it's not a process that allows for any discretion. And so you can provide the workbook to the committee, to the members of the public who may be interested. You can give them the resources to try to self-educate, and you can work through the process in the most public and well-paced and deliberative way that reveals as much of it as possible. But at the end of the day, the point where you're asking for feedback often is a point where it's very unlikely you're going to get your audience to have followed along with you on this entire course, right? It's like, they're only going to be able to respond to what they observed. And it's a small, it's a small blinder view of the entire picture. And that's the work. I mean, that's just a part of it. So I wouldn't take it personally when you get this feedback in the plan that says, like, I don't understand this, or I don't think this belongs here, or anything like that. I just would say, that's great that whoever the commenter was self-reflecting on what they didn't understand.
If someone says, I don't understand this, that's actually a pretty good comment.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Something that says, no funding, or the idea that this plan would somehow take Dogtown out of the city's control. It seems that sort of comment to me is not helpful, in that it doesn't, the underlayment for it is a willful, or perhaps, no, I'm inserting willful. There is an incomplete understanding of our process and the how our plan relates to city governance. And so this comment comes across as impertinent, and it's not helpful. But it also it puts the committee and anyone else working on this in the position of having to parse the the genuine comments from the impertinent, and so that's I suppose that's one of our points of deliberation.
Yeah, and that's the part of it. It is part of it. It's at every occasion. It's in every public comment. It's in every policy development process. It is. And you're absolutely right. You do have to try to figure out what is meaningful and useful and actionable, and what is a reflection upon the respondent. And I'm going to add to that just by saying, I know that there's a petition circulating to the city council. I'm sure this will come before the city council, among other things, about the removal or some suggestion that that's an option for the open space plan. It's not. It is simply not a negotiable point. It is not in the hands of the city. It is not a decision that the committee or any other entity in the city has the discretion to make. The completeness of an open space and recreation plan is at the discretion of the Commonwealth Division of Conservation Services, who writes this policy and produces the workbook for the plan. And we apply and submit our plan to the Division of Conservation Services, and they decide if it's a complete plan. And you cannot leave any inventory parcels out of the plan and have a complete plan. So they just deny you and say, you don't have a plan. Come back when you have properly accounted for all of your open space. That's it. It's not something any of us have any action on. And it's also not something that's going to be tolerated by DCS, because that doesn't concern them. They run their own, they're working from the same GIS overlay as the city of Gloucester and any other regional planning commission. It's Mass GIS, it's owned by the Commonwealth. They're going to download a complete parcel cluster on a certain number of variables, and they're going to come up with a number. And the inventory that we submit in the open space and recreation plan needs to match that number. And if it doesn't, go back. So that's the end of that conversation. There are rules. We don't make the rules. No one in the city of Gloucester makes the rules. Rules still need to be followed for this plan to be completed. And nothing else to it,
All right, well, thank you. That's helpful. I suppose it is reassuring, and to know that this is not just our committee. I'll stop there, but thank you.
Yeah, no, it's open space, land, parks, and the environment are really emotional subjects for a lot of people, for a lot of different reasons. And we all connect with our habitats and our personal spaces in different ways. And when they are part of a larger conversation, that can be scary, but it doesn't mean that isn't going to happen and that we're not going to be able to go forward with doing this work that aims to account for and improve and care for those places for everyone. So that's it. All right, so that's forum number 2 survey results. I know I just read them off. I wanted everybody to get a chance to see them. I was hoping that we were going to have some standouts, but it seems like it kind of came through very similar to the way that our discussion of action items happened, which is that we felt there were a lot of high priorities. And that's okay. We can just digest that a little bit and then also work through the comments a little bit to try to find things that maybe we can add in this comment period as we're really doing final copy and red line of the plan. So,
I would just like to say a couple of things. First, Adrian, thank you for reading all that. And I know you were just looking at it. So I wanted to jump in and say, I'll read, but thank you for reading it. I think getting that point clarified about high priority, medium, what it was, because it did seem like it was the largest number, not always high, medium, low.
right.
And to that point, I will say, as somebody that took the survey, I found myself unclear, like, how do I, what's the difference between high and, well, I guess I know what the difference is between high and medium, and I do know, but I also found myself wondering, okay, so we do this, we can see this data now. So then we've got these very specific comments that go with things. Some of them is prescriptive to, additions to the plan and very specific. I think I was just a little bit, I'm wondering about where people's comments go. And also, so when something is 48% high and 48% medium, what does that mean? Or what does that look like? Or how does that translate? So I think the subjective measure of what is a priority and how it translates into changes and or keeping the same. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that, or anybody else who has an insight.
Can you ask the question again?
Yeah. So how does this feedback that we got from 89 respondents, so that's just information now.
Mhm.
We put out the whole draft. So it's like, we just got some feedback and I want to take it and listen to it. And then we're going to get some more feedback. Are we going to change something between now and when the draft goes out? Or is that more information? That's like,
yeah. And we can talk about that. So the draft is going to go out, and this is a fairly complete draft, but there are sections that still need to be produced.
okay.
Right. So there's executive summary. There's a space in the draft for providing the feedback from this survey. We're going to have to try to look through the survey and say, what really won the high priorities? I mean, it might only be by a percentage point or two, but we do want to try to sort out where there were winners and highlight them in a summary, document at the end of action items. So go ahead, Dave.
I was pleased that there weren't any low with all of our priorities. They were all medium and high. And let me suggest that if you're within a couple of percentage points, just call it medium high, or high medium, rather than differentiate between the two.
Right. That's a good point.
Yeah.
So the idea here with the draft, which I'll pull up now, and I won't read it to you. I don't know if anybody had the opportunity to open it.
I just opened it, but I didn't look at it. I'm excited.
Well, it's this marvelous 300-page document. And I know I was listening to the March meeting, as I mentioned earlier. And Dan said, how many pages is this going to be? 200 or 300? And I went, oh, no, less than 100. So Dan, you got me.
You're particularly thorough, so I expected it to be longer than 100.
Well, I'll tell you what, a huge part of the document is actually this section on the inventory. Right. So from page 72 to page 247, we're really looking at a big tabular database that looks like this. And that's the complete parcel inventory database that we have to incorporate into the plan. I had it in my mind that it was going to be an appendix, but it turns out that the workbook calls for it to actually be totally integrated into the plan contents. So that's a big part of it. And you know, that means that, you know, the rest of the plan is like around 150 pages. So what I'd like to see tonight is I just want to kind of do an overview and just, you know, show you this a little bit. You should recognize a lot of the material in the text because we reviewed it all and commented. You'll see there are parts in here where we have additional description that is needed. This is exactly as I said. The city and OSRC hosted a second community forum on April 27th. Over 30 residents attended. During the meeting, MAPC city staff and the OSRP committee presented the goals and discussed the objectives outlined in the 7-year draft action plan. So that's what we were just going over. And then it says additional description and feedback to be incorporated following public review of the draft. So there'll be some discussion on the respondents for the public review of the draft. Oh, sorry. You know, we went through these pages, community setting, this was months ago, but we did. And we have some really nice maps. There's a
Do you mind making it a little bit bigger?
Oh, sure, yeah. I wanted to try to get one page on at a time. But, the history of the community. All of this we went over in the winter. These are early sections like 2, 3, and 4 with the population discussion. I flagged some of this because I wanted to try to look at it against the census data. This is the environmental justice population, these maps. You know, it's looking pretty clean. We have had the opportunity to see all of this already. Some land use. The zoning, these are, you know, it's mostly facts. And environmental inventory, I had our city sanitarian and environmental engineer and shellfish warden, as well as myself, go through this section to take a look at the watershed, surface water concerns, things like that. I think that Dave, we've reviewed all this, I'm sure. I remember Dave making some comments on the Native communities. So I think that we incorporated all of the comments that came back through the committee. I do think that this whole thing is going to need an end-to-end study, at least by myself and probably each of us. We're expecting a markup. But hopefully, due to our diligence here up to this point, it's not going to be too significant. I mean, that's the goal, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, the shellfish warden wrote a really nice piece in here. Scenic resources, the one section that you all have not yet seen is section 5. So we've been around this one. I'm gonna make it a little smaller. Mm-hmm. So we can kind of understand where we are located. As inventory. So this is the work that Gemma and Greg and I did about a year ago this time, which was to really deeply scrub the inventory and try to organize our understanding of Gloucester City parcels and reconcile them number by number against the maps. And then there's a pretty good methodology that Gemma wrote to describe how we went about doing it. And And then there's a discussion about open space mapping so that we can understand the legends. And these are the map sets. So this is good stuff. And this is what I'm saying, you know, the Division of Conservation Services is gonna look at this too. And, you know, this whole area up in here is gonna need to be part of it because it will stand out if it's not, right? So, and then we get into this beginning with Annisquam Footbridge, 200 and or some odd, 180 page inventory that looks like this.
And it's alphabetical, it looks like.
It is, yeah.
Okay.
So, find our way down. And you can see all of our unnamed parcels or things where there's incomplete information. So what's nice about it is that you can clearly see those ones that are an open question. Get a little further down here. This one's for you, Mark. Okay. Whew. All right, that one's beyond conservation restriction, the last. So, there's a little bit more discussion on, oh, I guess, hold on, I need to let this think a little. Okay. City-owned facilities, approximately 5,000 acres. And Commonwealth-owned facilities, very limited. And some property owned by the federal government, so that's pretty clearly identified. I just want to point out here, according to the plan, 80% of which, over 4,000 acres, are protected by conservation restrictions in Article 97 already. So much of Gloucester is protected either by Article 97 or conservation restrictions. The 1,000 or so acres that are not are what we would be talking about when we're thinking about reconciling unprotected property or Article 97 property. Many properties are held in Article 97 protection because the city has received grant funding. So there's some confusion around how this works. But I think it's important that we make really clear here and that we are explaining clearly that when you're talking about receiving funds for grants, it does not mean ceding ownership.
Mhm.
It means accepting a development restriction under Article 97.
And I think I just want to say that, Dan, that's what it sounds like you were addressing, the lack of information and or choosing to not hear that or being afraid of something different than what is presented and what is past practice. What is the practice? So I just want to acknowledge, Dan, that you made the comments and questions that you did because it's important, and thank you for addressing it. And I want to have a not a scarcity complex. I want to understand the fragility and the that we don't have there is a finite amount of space here and resources in Gloucester, but I want to maintain not a scarcity complex. And I don't think those are the same things, but good information and willingness to listen and trust elected officials, volunteer committees is part of that process. And then that's the best we can do. So I appreciate your bringing that point up, Dan, and your answer, Adrian.
Okay, so levels of protection are addressed here. That was that map. You know, when we have these maps, we're getting big legends and discussion about what protection looks like. And then this is the section on community vision. We just finished this one. This was in March. This will be additional feedback to be incorporated following the public review period. That's the feedback on the 7-year action plan, which we just looked at. So there will be a paragraph or two added in here to summarize what we just went over in the Qualtrics survey. And this is exactly as we provide. I returned it back to MAPC with your comments. And the park equity discussion. So we know what all of this is. We just went through it. And that's the SCORP. And then goals and objectives. This is now, we went over this as a Word document, but of course it's now been polished. And this is it, the summary of goals and objectives.
Mm-hmm. The 7-year action plan. There's first a discussion of what we did in the past. So these are past year's actions as part of the 2011 plan. So that we have our point of reference on where we've been before and how we've done it. And responsible parties. And potential funding sources. This includes city budget, the Community Preservation Commission, Office of Coastal Zone Management, Department of Conservation and Recreation, Division of Conservation Services, Department of Environmental Protection, Division of Ecological Restoration, and Department of Housing and Community Development. The Department of Transportation, and the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, Fish and Wildlife Service, and Historic Commission, among a few others that are more federal grants. And then there's the action plan. So we highlight a couple of locations in the action plan. This will take a minute, hold on. To say this is where we want to try to make improvements in the city. And I think this is a really great map. I really liked seeing it and looking at it, and I hope you all will study it. It's on page 280. But I think it really reflects how much the Open Space and Recreation Committee considered the entire community and the needs of the entire community as part of the Open Space and Recreation planning process, and the extraordinary diversity of open space and recreation resources that Gloucester enjoys.
And then this was our initial findings. When we walked through the objectives, where we would place them, we put them on, rather than high, medium, low, we put them on a timeline of 1, 3, 5, if you recall. And potential funding sources were there. These are organizations that would be responsible parties. So it looks good. And then the wrap up, a little bit of information on funding sources. This is boilerplate that you see in every single plan. And letters of review. So the next steps for this are for me to put it on the Open Space and Recreation Committee website. We also have appendices, which we can look at quickly. Those are the full map sets, the public forum presentation slides, the community survey, the information on the focus groups, the Park Serve report, and then the activity and use limitation inventory. That's a DEP inventory. Oh, it's opening. It's going very slowly. Now I've got too many big files open. So that will be up there too. I'm not going to force us through all of that right now, but it's really great to look at. It's also another 250 pages of appendices. Great big gorgeous maps. So please take your time with them at your leisure. They're big blown up versions of what's in the plan, and also there's a whole lot of additional mapping that has to be done for the open space plan with regards to soils and use and things like that that are not, as you can see, geologic history, and these are clam beds and things like that. So then finally, there's a comment matrix that was produced for us. It's pretty simple how to use this form. Use this form when submitting comments. Enter your email, completed comment matrices, and send them to conservation@gloucester-ma.gov. These are going to be automatically uploaded into a folder in our Open Space and Recreation Committee Google Drive. So we will get those public comments back. The ask is to provide the name and email, which of course people will have to do to be able to submit via email. And then the item that they wanted to comment on, the page, the paragraph number, and then whatever the comments are. This particular matrix has 20 lines and 20 opportunities to comment. Certainly if people have more comments, they can pretty much copy and paste this page and can continue on.
So Adrian, is this page, for example, are these boxes static? So they're like 3 lines of text each, or if you keep typing, will they grow?
It will grow.
Okay.
So this is going to be the public comment and public feedback mechanism on the entire project. In addition, we talked a little bit about this a long time ago, but at a minimum, the Open Space and Recreation Plan has to be reviewed and with a memo of support or comments for changes drafted by the Planning Board, the Mayor's Office, and the Regional Planning Commission. So I'm moving through this too quickly now. So we'll be submitting a form letter to those 3 entities who have to comment back for us to include that in the plan. That's part of section 10. And Dan had gone to a great deal of trouble about a year ago also to draft, a list of potential interested parties. So what we'd like to do is send that out to the chair people. We have just recently done an inventory in-house of boards, committees, and commissions. So we have a pretty good handle on who's on those groups. And I will send that form email out to all of you to circulate to amongst your groups. It will point everybody back to the Open Space and Recreation Committee page where they can download the draft and appendices and submit through the comment matrix. I'm also open if people want to submit form letters that are separate or make other comments to include those, as long as we feel like we can manage them. That's it.
Well, so there are comments that one can submit that are substantive, but as I guess sub co-authors or or contributors to the report, we'll want to make sure it uses our voice, and it may want to make editorial comments. Is there a means for that?
Well, you, the committee, you should be downloading it and redlining it for copy.
Okay.
I mean, that's not the same as what we expect the public level of comment to be. I mean, having been already through every section of the plan, our hope is that we're going to read through it again and say, we feel like we have the continuity we're looking for, the edits that we requested were made, and we're fine tuning it at this point. But yeah, you're co-authoring this. So I cannot be the only person to read it cover to cover, Dan.
No, I intend to. Okay.
So, and I think, committee members, I'm hopeful that you will submit it back to me separately or upload your comments maybe in that folder with your name attached to it that says Dan Morris comments, just as you did with sections. You won't be able to email them to me. They're too big.
Okay.
Appendices, I don't anticipate anyone having any comments to, because it's not maneuverable necessarily, the map sets, right? They're just big graphics for the most part. And we'll take a look at, what's there, and as long as there are no glaring errors. And of course we can mark that up, but that's part of the open space plan action, is to be, I think I've described this before, annually updating it. So ideally we don't go back in and dig around with the inventory, because it triggers us to make a whole lot of revisions. We want to make it the revisions to the inventory as the FY 2023 revisions, not the FY 2022 published document. There is an outstanding matter that we will have to address. Greg and I are going to probably start working on it tomorrow, and that is the Division of Conservation Services requires an ADA evaluation on all the open space parcels. I spoke with Courtney a little bit about this, and that includes all parcels with facilities. So we're going to try to figure out the best way to review probably the first 100 or 200 properties in Amesbury, in Gloucester, for ADA compliance. Our hope was that we would be able to pair up open space committee members. There's a rubric that you have to use for the Division of Conservation Services, where you sort of identify there are parking spaces, there are curb cuts, there are bathroom facilities, there are railings, or this is a gravel path or whatever it is. So there is a form that you have to complete, and we're going to hopefully try to organize it so that we can hand out in groups of 10, ideally, some properties to go visit and take a look at and take a couple pictures of. One thing you'll notice in the plan is that it is completely devoid of photographs. We decided that you have to include photographs as part of the inventory work. And so we decided it would be a really nice way to credit everybody that's involved if you would take some photographs of the places that you visit, and we will incorporate them into the plan, just for a visual break and things like that. I think that's it. How does it, what do we think? Liam, thanks, thumbs up. All right. I'm very happy about this. I'm really excited to share this with the public. I think it's been a long time coming. I think it has so much of what we've been talking about and the intent of the Open Space Committee and the work that we're doing just very clearly revealed. It's great, and it looks great for the most part. It has its finishing touches at this point, so I'm thrilled.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dan.
Thank you, Adrian, for all the work that you have been doing to. Well, it's been the intellectual work that has gone into it, and the effort in writing, but also just piecing the puzzle work, getting all these pieces together and then putting them into a cohesive whole. And so I'm looking forward to reading it all together, and I just want to thank you, and I'm excited about it being together. We've been with the hampered by COVID and the remote meetings. It's been a long time coming, and so this is really a big step, so thank you. I did want to ask what our I don't know if you've mentioned the timeline for our reviews. Wondering what that might be.
The public comment period is from now until June 3rd. And hold on, let me take a look at it. So the Open Space and Recreation Committee does have a regularly scheduled meeting for May 25th so that we can go over and approve meeting minutes. And I think at that time would be a really good time for us to all check in and say, how are you doing with your review of the draft?
Okay.
Do you need more time? Do you feel like it's going well? Did you see what you wanted to see? Are there a lot of questions? Things like that. I don't necessarily want to get into the meat of it because I think running through minutes is going to take us some time. But we also then have a regular June 8th scheduled meeting of the Open Space and Recreation Plan. That's the point where we're hoping to have all of our public comment back, the letters from the mayor, the additional couple of sections that need to go in there about feedback and review timeline. Hopefully we will have an opportunity to go out and do some of that ADA evaluation. So we'll be adding that in, and decide what we're going to include and incorporate. That doesn't mean it's a final ready to go, but it means that on June 8th, we will no longer be gathering more information, right? That's the idea. So we can check in on May 25th and see how it's going for everybody. I will be following up with everyone probably by the end of the week to try to put together the site visit schedule. I hope everybody is excited about that. The best part, and maybe we can all have a big, Open Space and Recreation Committee field day all over town. Put it out there. It's getting nice out. And, bring a little bit of energy to that right at the end of this process, and then incorporate that stuff. Hopefully be, pretty close to final decisions on June the 8th. And then the steps forward essentially are to submit the plan to Division of Conservation Services for final. Like I said, we're going to send it to them now because we know they are going to take a long time to get back to us, and they're going to, they always have a good deal of feedback. So they typically do like a pre-submission review. And we want to get that started because the hope is that they'll come back with some similar comments as what hopefully we'll see for public comment or from this group or something like that. You never want to send it to them cold. And then on June 8th, hopefully we will have heard something back from them by then. If not, we'll still be waiting on comments from them, and we'll still be kind of working through our end of it. And then we'll probably set another meeting date or two, but ideally in July, we'll be submitting this as a final to Division of Conservation Services and get it approved, and it comes back through the mayor's office and is accepted, and we are live. So, be great, right?
Great.
Anything else from anybody?
I don't think so. Or not from me. I would also just echo the thanks for guidance and also the piecing together of all the parts into something cohesive. So thank you for that. And I'm excited to read it from start to finish with breaks.
Yeah.
There's no audio version of it, I presume.
I mean, I could read it into Zoom, I suppose. I think I have. Organize the meetings in enough ways.
Yeah.
You know, you'll get through every section read out loud to you.
Well, speaking of ADA, I mean, like a lot of things that are online now have captions. And so for people that are deaf, hard of hearing, but then also if you can't read, I don't know. So.
Yeah. Oh, it makes a big difference. I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Zoom. So my Conservation Commission meetings through Zoom, my clerk has a hard time hearing.
Mhm.
And so the city has been able to push it through YouTube for her, and it automatically captions.
Mhm.
So she is able to much more easily transcribe the minutes with the support of the captions, which is something that, I mean, I don't know how often or if any of you ever met in the Kairos room, but you can't hear anything in there. So it's something that like simply would not be able to be done for her. We would have to have someone else try to record the meeting or something like that, because the acoustics are so bad in there. So there are certainly some ways in which technology has made a huge difference in accessibility.
Absolutely. Okay. So any other questions from the committee or comments? I do see that we have some members of the public here. Oh, Dan, yeah.
Before we go to public comment, I don't have a question about the open space plan, but our next meeting, one of the agenda items is to review all of our meeting minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And I needed reminding where to post them.
Oh, okay. Can you upload them to the Open Space and Recreation Google Drive?
Okay.
When you go to Google Open Space and Recreation Committee Drive, which I'll circulate that back around if you need, there's a folder called Meeting Minutes Draft. And we'll upload all of our meeting minutes up there and take a look at them on the 25th.
Okay.
Are there still open ones to do? I mean, I did a bunch and then I stopped, and there.
I'll tell you,
there was a spreadsheet there for a while, but
yeah, there is a tracking spreadsheet. I pivoted for a bit. I think there are only 2 left or so. I shifted obviously to focusing on this after we got everybody going. So you all did a great job, but I do think there's only like 2 left. It looks like September 8th, 2021 and 10/28/2021, which Dan, I think you asked about that. And one of them is the forum.
Yes.
or presentation, which that Zoom is owned by Courtney, and I need to ask him for it, which is,
Okay.
I'll
Yeah,
mark.
and that's where I was going. I've done 2 of mine, but that one I've been unable to do. And so something like that where MAPC made a presentation, need the minutes actually describe the slides, or can we just refer to the file?
You actually include the slides in the minutes. So you don't have to, you just make the statement that MAPC made this presentation,
Got it.
this is included in the minutes, and then you include the slides.
Okay, I'll figure out how to download them.
Yeah, I mean, and we can add them on after as part of the approval. Yep.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Are we accumulating more meetings without minutes though, as we have? Like, I don't
So,
think anybody took any minutes the last couple of meetings, right?
so the 427 meeting and today will both need minute takers.
Okay, I have good notes from 427.
Okay, great.
All right.
I can do that.
All right.
Less so from today.
And today, yeah. So,
Will there ever be any city clerk or anybody that does minute taking? I know that the CPC just got somebody to back on to do minutes. We were doing our own minutes for a bit there, and then we got somebody back on now to do them.
so my understanding, and I could be making this up entirely, it's totally out of the scope of my discretion. But as I understand it, advisory boards have to run their own minutes. And permitting and oversight boards, so if you are making appropriations, for example, CPC, they have to have a non-objective observer run the
Okay.
minute. And the
Right.
same with ZBA, planning and conservation, and city council. So that's why they're assigned a staff person or a per diem individual to record the minutes. And then there are 35 boards, committees, and commissions in the city. So I guess you got to draw the line somewhere.
Right, okay.
Yeah. So anyway, but that's where we're at, everyone.
Okay, well, I would just say, thanks everybody for your work in the pieces of the plan and also finishing up with meeting minutes. And I'm looking forward to our next meeting. I do also want to acknowledge members of the public to share a 3-minute comments. I see Marianne Boucher has her hand raised, and if somebody else on the committee is willing to be the timer in a respectful way, I invite public comment at this time. Marianne?
So Marianne, I'm going to allow you to talk and ask you to unmute. Please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, Marianne Albert Boucher, 93 Mount Pleasant Avenue. First of all, I want to thank Adrienne for her knowledge and her enthusiasm throughout all of these meetings I've been watching for quite some time, and your knowledge is incredible. I want to apologize if I missed this earlier, but will the public be able to review this plan before it's implemented, the entire plan as you have it? And if so, I think I saw that you are going to try to have it finished up on June 8th, if that's, and then maybe submitted on July 8th or July 15th. I jotted down things very quickly. And another question that I have was, I noticed you want to prioritize investments and upgrade certain parcels, playgrounds I was specifically interested in. And with that, will neighbors and abutters or will committees be formed to help work through what maybe we'd like to see happen in certain areas? And specifically, as you know, Maxwell Parsons for me is a high priority, and where that school will be coming down shortly, that's high priority for it, or for me, not to have it sit and sit for a long length of time without the attention of your committee, the city, and whoever else would be responsible for it. I would love to participate in some form of committee for that. And I don't know how that works. And I don't know if this is where we ask that question, but you know, I'm very interested in the children of the city and biking paths to and from schools. I think that should be a high priority. I believe we're taking a lot of that away. And I think that's critically important. So, you know, just a variety of questions that I just wanted to throw out there. So thank you.
I'll just say, Marianne, you will have a chance to read all 300, all 600 pages of this document.
And I will.
It's available on, it will be available on the Open Space and Recreation Committee website, which I know you know where that is, the City of Gloucester. So you can absolutely read it. There is spaces for you to comment and tell all your friends
And when will that be up?
tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to try to get it up overnight. It might be kind of hard for me to get it onto the website myself from this remote location. So I would check at noon tomorrow because I may need IT to help me get these big documents up. They're pretty large for my administrative capacity to the website. So I might get, you know, denied by the webmaster. So I would look at around noon tomorrow. It will be up there. It will be up until June 2nd, along with the web form to respond. On June 8th, the Open Space and Recreation Committee will meet again as we have today, and we will have collated all of that public comment by then, and hopefully have our letters from the mayor, the planning board, and also MAPC in support. I would not say that June 8th will be the day that the final plan is submitted to the Division of Conservation Services. Like I said before, we may not even hear back from them on their pre-submission review by then. I think it's more likely that it will be on the other side of the new fiscal year that we are delivering the final. But we are, as much as we can, trying to wrap up the process in this fiscal year. It is partially funded through a couple of other fund sources. It's not just me carrying this thing. So we need to close those out on the city side too, hopefully in this fiscal year. So the final submission likely to happen at the other side of June 1st, of July 1st. But the public comment opportunity is going to close on June 3rd so that we can keep moving forward.
Thank you very much.
I recognize Patty Amaral. Thank you, Patty.
Okay, Patty, I'm going to allow you to talk, and oh, you got it. Good job.
Great, thank you. Hello, thank you all. I wanted to say that after I spoke at the meeting the other night, a fence was erected, 6-foot stockade fence from one section to the path that I talked about with the litter and everything to the other end of the Emerald Forest. So I think that our communication was positive in that way where they did that. His men, Dio, who owns the property, Dio Braga, his men also cleaned up the area. And I thought I was going to go in there to see what I had videotaped that was horrifying, but instead they helped me out and I only got one bag, yellow bag. Tracy O'Neill is working with me to get a cleanup together to do Maplewood Ave side and the car wash side. I do wish that there was netting there, natural, that could save it, make it easy for us, because cleaning there is very hard. There's prickers and lots of things. So I appreciate your work. I don't know if your voice helped that to happen, but if it did, that's wonderful, because I have been talking to the city council about it too. And I appreciate your work. Open space is very important. Article 97, I didn't know anything about it until Mado's and trying to save it. It's so important. I didn't realize that just 2.7 acres can be so important. And also Dogtown, that's just so big. I think that people's hearts are just, they really feel like they own these places when they walk in there all the time, and it's part of them. And I guess just now they really want to save it, and it's difficult when it's not saved. So we don't have a lot of open space, I don't feel. Doing the open space plan myself, I felt like we could have had more, and it is abused, and it needs work, and it needs care, and it needs stewardship, and it needs us to care for it. So the open space plan is, I think, all that and more. From our cemeteries, open spaces to everything. So it's great that we're doing the open space plan. We continue to do it. It's very important. I do wish more people were involved. It's kind of sad that they're not, because they enjoy open space, but then they don't talk about it and stand up for it. So I do think it's important. I've learned a lot. I learned a lot from the Open Space and Rec Committee that I sat on with people I'm looking at right now. And I'll continue learning. And I appreciate the work that you're doing and what everyone else does who picks up litter and tries to save open space and speaks up about it. So thank you very much. And we love open space. Protect Article 97 land. Thank you.
Thanks, Patty. I'm glad to hear that about the Emerald Forest. And I could see where the frogs were. I mean, I didn't hear them, but when I drove by, I saw there's a lot of water
Oh, I'm
there.
glad that you went by to see, because
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
you're up close, you can drive by it, you don't see it, but you get out of your car and you walk, and you got the Indian, you're crying on the highway.
Yeah.
The tears coming down your face, because this is my neighborhood. This is where I walk my granddaughter.
Yeah.
And it needs to be safe. I just picked up 2 needles over on Derby Street and the police officers came and got them for me, and just in clear sight. So we have to do better.
Yeah.
And we can do better together. We can do anything.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Well, I'm going to say I don't see any other hands raised. So this ends the public comment period. And if there's no further business, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A second?
Sure, I'll second.
Dan Morris, second. So a roll call to adjourn the meeting. Dan Morris,
Yes.
Mark Poulin,
Yes.
Liam Anastasia Murphy,
Yes.
Dave Sargent,
Yes.
Heidi Wakeman, yes. Everyone approves of the meeting. So this meeting is ended, and I look forward to seeing people back online on May 25th, Wednesday night at 5:30.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Adrian.
Right.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Have a great night.
Thank you.